You're doing so well by following every lesson and trying to learn more about Python. Specifically, we are preparing ourselves for data science, okay, in Python. So, let's talk about while loop. Okay, this is part of the flow control codes in Python. In our last lesson, that is lesson 9, we worked with the if statement, and here we're going to talk about Python one of two loops, the for loop, the while loop. Okay, the other loop is called the for loop. We'll talk about that in another lesson. Okay, so sometimes you want to get a block of code to run and run and run over and over again, and you use while loop or for loop. In this particular lesson, we talk about the while loop. Okay, so the while loop, how it works is you start with while a condition with a colon, then you start whatever you want to be. You want Python to run it over and over again. So um, I'm going to write an if statement, and the if statement will have the same condition with the while statement. And you realize a while loop will print different, like it will run the code multiple times, while the if statement will run it in just a single time. So suppose I name this variable spam to be 0. Okay, and if I say if spam is less than 5, okay, remember the if statement, this is how you go about it. If condition colon, right? Then print, I want you to print hello world. Okay, now I want to increase the spam by spam is equal to spam plus 1. So what this is happening is, after I run this, the new spam here is 0, right? After I run this, I'm saying that the new spam is supposed to increase by the original spam plus 1. So spam will increase by 1 in each code I run. So let me run this and see what happens. I see hello world. Right, so the if statement takes, yeah, indeed, this spam here is less than 5, and it will print hello world. Now suppose I want to write the same thing, but I'm going to use the while loop. Okay, I've defined spam already, so Python knows spam. Now if I write while loop, let me write that on the other line. So if I go by while, like I said, the while statement and the condition spam, or maybe you can just copy everything, right? I mean, it's just straightforward, and then all that we change is the while loop here. What this is saying is that so long as spam is less than 5, keep on doing this, right? So while spam is, while this, do that. Okay, so while spam is less than 5, so at any moment when spam is less than 5, print hello world. And when you are done, increase spam by 1, and spam should be, so the new spam we're going to use here is spam plus 1. So here the original spam was 0, right? um I mean, it has already been affected by this one. So let me actually define the 0 1 here. I want to define the spam here, because of that line here, it will increase spam to 1. So spam will not start from 0, you start from 1. So here in this particular block of code, spam is starting from 0, and while spam is less than 5, so the first one is going to take this first condition, this spam here, it is 0, it's less than 5, it will print hello world. And now the new spam should be the original spam plus 1, and that will make the new spam to be 1, and then it will come back to compare it to 5. So 1 is less than 5, it will print hello world again. Now the one that we have as a new spam, all right, let me just let me print. I want us to see what is happening here. Spam, I want to print each spam I get. Okay, right, right? So I want to print each spam and see what happens. So if I do this, right? So for the first one, hello world. So spam here was what? Zero. Spam is zero. So here spam is zero. It picks the first spam. Now, because of this condition, the new spam will increase by adding one to the original spam. So if I add one to this zero, I'm going to have one. So here it print hello world, and the spam there was one. And here it prints another hello world, spam is three, until spam is equal to five. When spam is five, so when here spam is what? Four. When it gets to four, right? The next spam is going to be spam is equal to 4, which is the original spam, plus 1, that will give us 5. And the condition will come and compare the new spam, which is 5, is not less than 5. So once you reach a false condition, the while loop will break. So here, how the while loop works is that so long as you have a true statement, it keeps on running. The code will keep on running until it gets to a false statement, and then it will stop. Okay. Now let's look at some other parts of the while loop. We can we can include a particular part where we want to break out of the while loop. Okay, there are cases where the while loop will never stop, and we have to introduce something that will break the while loop. Okay, so we going to introduce what we call the break statement in a while loop. Okay, so while, let's say while true, this one I'm going to do here is called an infinite while loop. So the while, like I said, the while loop works in a way that it always runs some block of codes so long as you have a true statement. And once I have while true, it means true is always true, so it will never run to false. So there's no way we're going to have a case where the code will break. But here, we will introduce the break at some point. Okay, and I want to take some response from the person who ran this code. I'm going to take a user input. I'm going to say type I want to tell the person that type exit, right, to quit this code. Okay, or this whatever. All right, so type exit to quit. Okay, and I'm going to add an if statement that if response is equal to exit. Okay, if response is equal to exit, then I want to break out of this for loop and say I want to print something in the for loop. You typed, so I want to say you typed response, right? So if I run this, whoever that run this code, Python will ask you type exit to quit this. So if I don't type exit and I type another thing, right? Let's say I type no, it will ask me to type, you type no, right? So type exit to quit this. Right? So if I want to quit it, I have to just type exit, and then it will just stop, right? It will just stop like that. Once I just type the exit that he wanted me to type, it just quit the code, right? But if I don't type exit, it will keep on asking me. Let's say I type AB, ask me type exit to quit. I'm like, no, I'm going to type go on or something, right? Type exit to quit. So whatever I do, it will still ask me to type exit. So before I can break from this loop, I have to type exit, and then it will break, right? Nothing comes out again. And we have the continue statement, which also says that um, so the continue is used to tell some blocks of code to continue if a condition is satisfied in the while loop. Okay, so suppose I just define some n equal to 0, and I define a while loop while n is less than 10, and I want to do certain things. N plus equals 1. This is the same thing as saying the new n should be equal to the original n. So this is what I'm trying to say. I want to update n, right, and say n is equal to the original n, or the first n plus 1. So the new n is equal to the first n, or the n you defined earlier, plus 1, right? And in this Python, what you can do, you can still do plus equals 1, and that says it increase n by 1. Okay. And now I want to have a condition that if n modulo 2 is equal to 0, I mean, it means that when we define whatever, so I'm going to take n, and n is starting from 0, and I'm comparing it to while n is less than 10, so from 0 to 9, right? If that number I pick modulo 2, so it means that when I divide that by 2, I get exactly 0. I mean, so if I divide that by 2, I get a perfect number without any remainder, that is a modulo. I have to do something, right? So when I divide the number, I'm taking that point again. When I divide that number by 2 and I get a remainder of 0, that's what I mean. So a number like 4, 6, when you divide 4 by 2, you're going to get 2, right? Or divide 6 by 2, you're going to get 3, remainder 0. So once those conditions are reached, I want to continue, right? I want to continue this while loop and print n. So for every n that we will have, we'll print this n. Okay. So we will print. Let's see what happens to this code. All right. So if I run this, I have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And why is that? It's doesn't print the even numbers because the even numbers are the ones that are being achieved here, right? So if you have an even number, its remainder divided by 2 will give you 0 indeed. So once that is achieved, go to continue with the while loop, right? So you do that until you get to the point where, so when n is actually not equal to a number that is divisible by 2, it will print that n. So here, when n is equal to 1, n is not divisible by 2, right? So it will just print that n, because it will first take this condition and check if 1 divided by 2 is actually going to give you a perfect number, and that is not the case. So we come here and then print the 1. If it gets to 2, it will 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1, remainder 0, so it will continue with the while loop. It will not come to the print, right? So it will do up until it gets to the last n, which is 9, because n here we are comparing it to 10. So the number that will be less than 10 for the last integer by increasing n by 1 all the time is going to be 9. Okay, so you can choose to increase, I mean, n by whichever value you want. You can say 0.5, and if you run this, it should give you a lot of values, right? It should give you a lot of values. So you should know how to use these. Now we're going to create another game like we created in the if statement. Here I have the game already. So we import a random package, generate a random number between 1 and 0. I have a number between 1 and 0, and all that you are doing is start the guessing loop. So you guess, right? So while I'm going to use a while loop, and the while loop here that I'm using is to make sure that we all the time we'll play this game until we get to the point where we'll have the same value as what Python will have. Okay, so the while loop here is is a loop for the while, right? Get users guess. So here it just pick a user input, guess the number, and if guess is digit. So here this condition is saying that it's a condition that is telling you that if the guess that we are having is a digit, then we'll continue with these ones, right? Then guess is equal to integer guess. What this line is also doing is converting whatever guess you gave to be an integer. And then if the guess is the same as the secret number that Python will pick from the random here, then we'll break. We'll print. You got it. The number was blah blah blah, and then you break. Now if the guess is less than secret number, then you print too low, try again. So, and then the next obvious one is when the guess is bigger than that, too high, try again. Now, this else statement you see here, this else here is actually for this if, right? So the first thing is checking whether you put in a valid digit. Okay, if you did not, it will tell you print, like you print this, please enter a valid number. Okay, so let's run this and play for a couple of times, guess the number. So if I, let's say if I take T and point it there, it's going to tell me please enter a valid number, because T is not a number. And this while loop is going to run until we get to the value. So if I pick 6, now it Python took something else, right? Guess the number. So I'm going to play this up until I get to whatever value. So you can play with it, right? I'm sure I'm not going to get the exact thing, but you can play with it until you get to where the number will be equal to the same thing as what Python will have. Okay, so that is for the while loop. You can add more comment to this, particularly to, if you remember in this game that we did for the if statement. I'm trying to find it out, and then yeah, for the if you remember what we got in the if game, we added a lot of comments, right? So you can add a lot of comment here, the number I was thinking of, so you can break it at some point and say the number the Python was trying to think of, and then do a lot of stuff. Okay, so this code is still running. I'm going to pause this video here, and then we'll continue with the for loop. See you in our next lesson. Okay.